Welcome back, everybody. It's two guys and a stack of comics back there. My name's Mike, and alongside me is Reed, of course. And we're just happy to be talking about comics today, especially the one that came out this week. Did
Ultimate
you
Black
get your
Panther #2.
Ultimate
Yeah.
Black Panther #2?
Seemed
Um,
like at most shops it was still selling pretty well. I know at the shop I go to, they were out of copies. I only got mine because it was on my sub list. So I know after I went after work and picked it up and it was gone, except for in my sub box. So
yes, you know this is one of those ones you want to make sure you put on your sub list because it is selling out. A lot of folks got to it late and they're waiting for the second printing of issue #1,
yep.
which I think comes out later this month. They crank those presses back up again, and hopefully it'll get you a second printing of #1. But yeah, go ahead and get #2. You can set it aside if you don't want to read it yet until you read #1.
Yeah.
I know I've had to do that a few times with a few comics, but definitely get it.
It's been a while since you've had comics where they can't keep them on the shelf. So it's great to see Marvel getting a couple wins. Even though you and me are more DC guys than Marvel, it's great to see any win for the comics book shops and for
And
Marvel.
shout out to local comic shops if you're in San Antonio. Go see the friendly folks at Alien World, or if you're in the Alamo Ranch area, Dragon's Lair, Alamo Ranch.
Yeah, no, a lot of good comic shops in the area, and certainly if you can support your own local comic shop. So getting into the review a little bit of Black Panther #2, we get Brian Hill and Stefano Caselli again on the creative side of this. First issue, bit of recap there. Obviously you had kind of the initial sort of setup of T'Challa's married to Okoye, but they kind of hint that there's either strife there or something not complete about the marriage, and that they kind of sleep separately. You have a war happening where the forces of the Moon Knight, so Khonshu and Ra, are attacking Wakanda. Black Panther's kind of strategically staying in the background, not starting the war yet. And then at the end of the first issue, you kind of have where it seems as though Black Panther's father was killed. So issue 2 picks up right from there. Mike, just your initial thoughts on this issue. What'd you like? What'd you take from it?
First of all, I gotta say that I like the art. There was a lot of really cool panels in here, and this mysterious figure pops in to talk to Khonshu. There's a traitor in the midst. So I like the art. I love the story. I love where it's going. Um, I like that, there's all this intrigue, and we're gonna, find out a little by little kind of like what's going on, and how you can't trust the priestesses because they have, although they talk to the gods, they have their own agenda, and
Yeah.
they're trying to get T'Challa, to keep level headed about what they're telling him. So, and it's kind of sets you up. There's definitely a spy in their midst, and you just don't know, what's going to happen. It's pretty cool.
No, I think from a lot of a plot structure standpoint of it, I think obviously picks up right after the death of his father. I liked at the beginning where they kind of have where T'Challa is like putting everybody who might have anything to do with this, and they're literally saying like, "Hey, they're kind of afraid of you right now because of the actions you're taking." And I thought it's a good character moment. I think it's one of the cool things is Black Panther's a very strategic and very cool character, but something like the death of his father should be something that shakes him a little bit. And I like that that wasn't just thrown away, kind of like, he died, and now we just move forward with some sort of time jump, and he's adjusted. Now you see that he's still processing that, and I love when they have character beats where you can tell things kind of matter. I thought Okoye was a really cool use of her in the book as well, where she's kind of like you can tell she's like his, you don't exactly know what's going on with their marriage, but they did a good job in terms of like her being like the kind of the voice of the angel on one shoulder. You kind of
Level
set up
headed.
that Wakanda has some things happening where they're losing some battles they shouldn't, or some things are kind of getting out of control. And so, like you said, there seems to be a spy in everyone midst. And so we see Ron Khonshu kind of planning with someone who's on the inside who wants to destroy Wakanda. I
And
thought
then
some of
at
the cool
the
things they did, the suit design for Black Panther, I think this issue gives us a much better look at it. It is a really cool kind of MCU-ish suit, but it also kind of has some differences and some things like that Batman kind of open look on the cowl, which I just think make it look really cool and unique. I got to give A+ to whoever did the costume design for Black Panther. It's a cool look.
I know. And then, for him to go it alone at the end
Yeah.
of issue 2 and just say, nope, I have to do this by myself. That was it kind of speaks to what you were saying earlier. Like he's still processing this, and
Hmm.
he's still, he's trying to be strategic, but he also, he's really got to address what's
He's
happening.
grieving and going through things. And
Yeah.
I love that Brian Hill, the writer, didn't toss away like just, hey, the death for the death's sake, and it happens, and that's just to set the table. He actually lets it play out in the story. I think some other things Brian Hill's doing a really good job with this version of kind of Wakanda and everything with Black Panther. Black Panther's always been interesting because there's always a cool mix of like technology with a little bit of like spiritual side of things too, because they have the the belief obviously in like the Panther God and all of that. And so one of the things that's cool is you kind of see those mystics that are involved, kind of telling him his fortune and what he thinks he's going to have. Like he's destined to have an heir, but they kind of make it seem like it maybe not Okoye. And based on the last page, it seems like they're hinting at someone else. Uh,
Right.
then you get a great mix of technology. There's a scene where he kind of comes in with this very Panther esque sort of
I
ship.
know,
You can see it
that was
there.
so cool, right?
It was really cool, and it kind of reminded me again, kind of that Batman-esque vibe of the use of the technology, and then he drops out of the ship. And I think again, one of the cool things that Wakanda always can offer in comic books is that mix of mysticism plus technology, and I thought they did a really good job with that. I like the renditions of Shuri that we're getting. Okoye, I feel like they're MCUified, but they still feel different. They're kind of differently on the chessboard than they are in the movies. And I think that's just really smart. What I will say with this, it didn't feel like filler. And that's what I really love so far about all the Ultimate comic books that I've read. The 2 issues of Spider-Man and 2 of Black Panther, even the X-Men one, which I wasn't as big a fan of, you can tell at least it's building towards something. It doesn't feel like, hey, this month we just put an issue out, just read it, and it's going to have like people talking. I was worried when they did the death issue that we would get an issue of just dialogue and long conversations. And that's a lot of too many of the problems comic books have right now is there's too many dialogue heavy issues where it's like, look, if you want to do that in an indie, that's cool. But if I'm reading Black Panther, Captain America, X-Men, Batman, Superman, we need some action. It's a
We
super.
want to see some action.
And so I love that there was a balance. It doesn't ignore the emotional beats, but there is, hey, some really cool action scenes. And the action scenes feel intentional. It's not something where it's just, oh, shoot, no one's punched anybody in 3 pages. Let's just have someone get in a fight. It kind of feels
Right.
intentional. I thought there was a cool cinematic feel to it with like the technology where he's rolling with the plane and then he
It
drops.
really
You could
was,
see
right?
that kind of in a movie that works well. We'll go into spoilers a little bit at the end because obviously it's a comic book issue. So if you want to pick it up, but if you don't want to go through spoilers, obviously we've spoiled a little bit so far, but the big page, the last reveal of the last page is probably the big spoiler for most folks. Um, so earlier in the comic, it's kind of led that he's told a woman of light will be bring you an heir and bring you peace. And so he takes that to mean Okoye, who's his wife, but he kind of questions that. Kind of you get from his
It ends
reaction
with
that
a
he's kind of
question mark.
surprised, like what she's going to give me an heir, so you don't really know what's going on there. And then obviously, as Mike said, there's kind of a mission building for him, and he decides to go it alone. And out on the last page, he confronts and finds what looks to be Storm or the Ultimate
But
Universe
first, he
variant
gets
of Storm.
ambushed.
Yeah, gets ambushed, kind of survives, and Storm saves his butt. And then
Yeah.
it looks to be. We're thinking it's Storm. I'd be very surprised if it's not Storm.
It
Um,
kind of seems like Storm.
yeah, I would imagine it is. It would be very weird if it wasn't. And so she kind of shows up, and we get that appearance of her.
Yeah.
Obviously, in the regular continuity, they have had kind of an interesting relationship in that they had met a few times in issues, and then in the early 2000s, they got them married, and that lasted about a decade. And then, of course, comic books, they couldn't let that last, and then they broke that off for I don't even remember what ridiculously contrived reason they did to break that off. And then she's kind of been floating in the background of his comic books in the 616 main universe for a while, but it seems like they brought that element over. Um, it's interesting in that, like, I'm happy to see Storm. I love Storm as a character. I think she's one of the comic books best. I just it is. I wish they would fill out a little bit more of the Black Panther universe side of things, Wakanda and Shuri and Okoye and stuff like that, before bringing in one of the X-Men heavy hitters. But I will say I don't mind seeing Storm ever, so it
It's
doesn't
kind of
bug me as
cool,
much as it
right?
would be. And I
It
think
is kind of
she's
cool.
a great character. And what I will say is Brian Hill's doing a really good job writing the book so far. So I would say I'd rather have a great writer handling Storm than just throwing her in something. So pretty exciting to see her at the end and see what'll build out of that. Overall, anything else that really stood out to you on the book, Mike?
No, I'm happy that I have a Marvel book on my pull list that I'm really liking. Of course, Jackson has the Ultimate Spider-Man on there,
Hmm.
and I'll have to get caught up and read both of those.
Yeah,
But so,
definitely worth your time to read those.
but yeah, I'm liking Black Panther, which is cool because I'm an old Black Panther fan from back in the day. So it's kind of cool to uh, see and read a story that I don't need a bunch of background on,
Hmm.
and that I can just jump in and I can recognize the character and
Yeah.
understand and move forward. That's a little bit of my trepidation with diving into some of these others, is like, is the character that I pick up the comic book, am I going to be able to recognize it and enjoy the story?
Yeah, I think the great thing they're doing with this book thus far, and again, 2 issues, who knows where it'll go. Um, it does seem to be a very easy entry point for folks. If you were an MCU Black Panther fan, I think this is a book you could pick up, and you don't need to necessarily have read anything prior. You could just have an understanding of who the character is, and I think it would work. And I think this is smart. If only they had done this, 5 or 6 years ago, when these movies were making $1 billion, I wonder what the results could have been. But I
I
think it's a
know.
great entryway point for folks, and I think this is a very easy read for someone to pick up on. I also just love the characterization of T'Challa we're getting so far. I think that's been the biggest thing lacking out of Black Panther comic books in the last decade, really, or so probably 6 years since the movie came out. They put a lot of writers in there who I think wanted to do a lot of, I don't know, political drama and intrigue, but didn't really want to treat T'Challa well. And so became a black background player in his own comic book. And then a lot of it was about disassembling the monarchy and not letting him be the king of Wakanda anymore. And it just didn't fit for the character. And this feels more just like, nope, this is an awesome character you're going to love. It feels like a throwback to, as someone who's read Black Panther for a long time, feels like a throwback to some of the stuff like that Christopher Priest used to do on the book back when the Marvel Knights era of comics was out. A little bit of Don McGregor too, a lot of the royal intrigue and things like that. And that's just cool to see. And that I think Black Panther has such a cool universe to explore in terms of it's a great mix of
Awesome.
technology, mysticism, politics, political intrigue, spies, that kind of stuff. There's so many elements that can get. It seems like they're kind of hitting all the key notes thus far. So I think through 2 issues, definitely I would give this, an A or a thumbs up or whatever the ranking system we'll end up using on this channel would be.
Me too.
Definitely would fully recommend for anybody to pick it up if you're interested. And if you're a lapsed Black Panther fan, I think you would really like reading some of this stuff. If you're an MCU fan who has not picked up comic books in a while, I think hunting these two down will absolutely be worth your time. It's a great character, getting a great spotlight, and a really good creative team so far. So hopefully they keep it up. As with every Marvel and DC comic, I always wonder, is this going to go for a while? I hope this isn't like some 6 issue mini series that ends. But overall, very, very impressive first 2 steps in the Black Panther of the Ultimate Universe. Let us know what you think below, though. Did you happen to pick one up? What did you think of the comic overall? Are you excited to read, the Ultimate Universe of comic books? As always, we love hearing from you, and we will catch you in our next video.